Hello and welcome back to Small Talk. We've got a great episode ahead as we speak with a pair from Claremont-Mudd-Scripps. I'm your host, Katie Mucci. Each week on the show, we highlight the past and present of Division III with both current and former student athletes joining to talk about their experiences, their favorite on-campus spots, the craziest road trip stories, and more. This week, we're chatting with Sena Selby, a recent graduate from the women's tennis team at CMS, alongside a former member of the program, Pat Allen. The two talk about the unique Claremont experience, the time the team met Coco Gauff at the airport, the best spots around campus, and more. Thanks for joining this week. Now it's time for some small talk.
Hi, I'm Sena Selby. I am now a former player. I just finished up my senior season at CMS. I attended Claremont-McKenna College, which is one of 3 schools that make up CMS. And I guess for what I'll be doing post-grad, I'll be moving to Japan in about a month and a half to work for Yonex, which is a sports manufacturing company based in Tokyo that actually makes my tennis rackets. So I'm super excited for that.
Nice. That'll be an adventure. Hi, my name is Kat Allen, and I'm a former member of the CMS women's tennis team. I graduated from Scripps College in 2020, so a while ago now, but I also attended Claremont Graduate University right after undergrad. So I had the opportunity to meet Sena when she was a freshman, and I believe we were able to hit once or twice, and I heard and I knew that she was a fiery competitor, and that's really one of the main things that a CMS Athena needs to thrive, and she proved me right. I am currently located in San Francisco. I work at a private equity firm, and I am on the growth team there.
Well, thank you both for joining me. One thing right off the bat I'm going to talk about, because I have done so much research and trying to understand this, and I feel like I kind of do, but I need to hear about this college thing. So 3 colleges, and really there are 5 from what I know. Pomona Pitts are the other 2. What is that like? Maybe just for both of you. You went to 2 different colleges, but we're part of the same program. What is that like, and how do you explain that to people when they're like, wait, what?
Yeah, I mean, for us, I think it's a little bit harder to explain because we actually, like, for the last 2 years, didn't have, like, a Scripps student. I think Kat, was a Scripps student, and then our last Scripps student was Crystal, who graduated in 2022. So, like, when people ask me about that, I'm like, "Oh, we didn't, like, actually spend a lot of time at, like, one of the 3 colleges." Um, but yeah, it's, like it's interesting to try to explain to people because 'cause they're like, "What is CMS?" Like, you go to Claremont-McKenna College, but then you play for CMS. But honestly, like, I think it made such a great, like, experience, a unique experience because you're essentially, like, teammates with someone who doesn't actually, like, go to your school. And, like, I would say that the vibes of the different schools are also different. Um, and so you get to sort of, like, live at like, experience different things at different colleges. Um, yeah, it was super cool.
Yeah, when I would try to describe it, I would use the word consortium a lot and then
Mhm.
use my hand 5 fingers and just list all the schools out for everybody. Yeah, and it was definitely a unique experience. There were 3 Scripps girls, including myself, for the majority of the time I was on the team, and we had a couple mutters as well. And as Senna mentioned, each school has, a different vibe, and kind of the majors are a little bit different as well. I think the fun part that Senna touched upon is that we get to, go different places to see our friends. And so it changes things up, where we would all hang out with one another. So that was always really fun.
Perfect. Well, that leads right into my first topic. So we're going to talk about kind of campus life or campuses life of campuses, whatever the plural is there. So when you are hanging out, you had an opportunity to go around to a few different campuses. What are some of those best spots that you and your teammates kind of gravitated towards, even if you were at different schools? Are there any specific ones? And Senna, I'll have you start. And then Kat, you went to a different school, but maybe follow up and let me know if that was the same for the program then.
Mhm.
I would say for me personally, I spent a lot of time at the Hub. It's like such a great people watching spot. It's like right in the center of honestly, like probably the 5 campuses, if I would say. And you definitely like see people from the different campuses. Like there were a few teammates of mine who went to Harvey Mudd who loved like the hub, and I would always see them in there, and I would always join their booth, and we'd do work to get, well, actually, the hub is a terrible place to get work done because there's just like so much commotion going around. Um, but I definitely loved sitting there and like hanging out with my friends and like doing busy work. Um, I would say as a team, we hung out at our tennis center like a ton, and like we have like a really nice like team room with like a whole screen set up and like a bunch of tables and couches, and like I got a lot of work done there. Like the past 2 years, I would say like somebody would be in there like watching basketball or like putting on a show, and like people would just like gather and like be there. It was such a great like place to hang out.
Yeah, definitely. I would touch upon the hub. I did not think of that as one of the go-to places for myself, but when I think about it again, I definitely spent some of the most time there. I would also add Scripps Pool. It's very scenic, and I remember we would go there before and after class to swim and relax. We would also try to change practice times so we could get the best sun hours. And I remember there were Scripps students only hours, and we would try to sneak in our fellow CMC teammates, namely Maddie Shea, all the time, and we were successful about a quarter of the time. I think another place that might surprise you, Sena, is Stark Hall. And that's a
Whoa.
dorm, yeah, that's a dorm on CMC's campus. And I would say getting beat in ping pong by Nicole Tan and Lauren Yamagami was some of the most fun I've ever had. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and then of
I will
course,
say Stark has like those, it has such good like games. Like I would play
yeah,
pool in there sometimes. It's like I know the men's team hangs out there, but
yeah,
we were
it's
away from
a
there.
very fun place, and it's right by the tennis center too. So we'd play ping
Mhm.
pong and then go to Byzance Tennis Center, which is our second home, practicing, studying, celebrating birthdays, and watching movies and having dance parties as a team.
Awesome. Are there any favorite local coffee shops, restaurants, things that if you have someone going to visit Claremont, you're going to point them towards? Kat, you're nodding your head, so I'll let you say it.
I want to see if it's the same.
I think, no, Senna, I think when I came for alumni event, I did ask about this restaurant and you were like, yep, we still go there. It's Phenomenal for Thai. We had that
Oh
way
yeah.
too
Hmm.
much. It has the best pad kee mao and tom kha gai soup. In the village, there's Kazama for sushi and udon. That was a pretty popular place. And then Blaze for make your own pizza. There was so much ricotta cheese on mine all the time. 21 Choices for froyo for dessert. I remember my dad visited me and he was like, can we please not get Asian? And then so we went to Blaze and 21 Choices, but that was like a one-time thing.
That's so
I feel like
funny.
I'm just giving food recommendations, but not a restaurant. Harvey Mudd Dining Hall for tikka masala and sushi nights on Fridays.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, all those are definitely spots that we had as a team. Um, for coffee, we went to Iron and Kin, like so like people would walk there like every Sunday morning and we'd just do homework there for like hours. Um, I know a lot of people went to Revved Up Coffee, especially the Mudders, because it was so close. Like you could just like it's literally down the road from the college. Um, we hit Peppamello a lot too, which is
Oh my
an
God.
acai place. We actually instituted a new tradition after the mile, which we run every fall. Everybody has to make a 7:30 mile. And then we go straight to Peppamello after and celebrate everybody making the mile.
Wait, that is so cute. I remember
Yeah.
Peppamello. I think it had just opened up maybe my sophomore year, and it was like
Mm,
all the rave for a couple
yeah.
members on the team. And then
Mhm.
a couple of us were like, no, it's not that good. And then we went, and we're like, okay, this is the new place.
Yeah, I think like hopped on the wave like probably the end of my junior year because I was not like an acai person at all. Like we don't really have that on the East Coast. And then like the second I got to California, everyone's like acai, boba, like all these things, and I'm like, whoa, these are too sweet for me. And then like I don't know, some like flip changed, and I was like, I need acai like at least twice a week, and I need to go to Peppamello to get it.
I'm sure Dave appreciated that because we were eating way too many unhealthy snacks beforehand. And
Yeah,
I think the
not a
the
fan of
valuable
boba.
he would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, good. If I make it out to the tennis championships that are being hosted in Claremont next year, then I
Oh,
have a whole
yes.
list of places to go.
I said I was just giving food recommendations.
This is all I did the podcast for, actually. Podcast is done. I just needed some recommendations for next year. So
For food.
yeah.
I will say, one place that I like definitely hit every weekend that my parents were in town so they could treat me to a nice Italian dinner was
Bordeaux.
Tutti Bordeaux. Oh yeah, that place is good. But for Italian, I would go Tutti Mangio for sure. Like every single time they're in town, I was like, I need pasta taken care. So that is a good food rec. But I
I
don't know
love
if that might be like a me thing. I don't know if that was like a team thing.
I love it. Okay, cool. So that was Claremont. Now let's kind of talk about on
Mhm.
the road life. So obviously you guys have some incredible tennis in the SCIAC in your conference. You don't have to go too far to get really good matches in, but you do travel a bit with your team, especially being a West Coast D3 school. Let's hear about just kind of your trips, any fun trips you guys were able to take. I know, I assume you guys probably both had some NCAA tournament experience. I know some of you are literally a couple weeks removed from yours, but
Mhm.
any trips that stand out to you location wise that you loved or had the best time at? And Kat, I'll have you start.
Most of our matches were home matches. I don't think that'll change for Coach Dave. But we did take vans to other SoCal schools a few times and some plane rides. Texas, Kentucky, Hawaii, Tennessee, and Kalamazoo were a couple, and those were always really fun trips. Um, some highlights. I got food poisoning while on the plane from a turkey sandwich at the airport one time on our way back from Kentucky, I think. My teammates were very supportive. And
Oh
then
my God.
there was another where our flight got canceled, and this is right after we won indoors for the first time. And so we were standing there for a good 2 hours in the airport trying to figure out what to do before moving to a hotel. But out of those, I think my favorite place to visit was probably Hawaii. I feel like that's kind of the
Yeah, I
most
can see
obvious
that.
choice.
Awesome. Sena, how about you?
Yeah, my year missed out on the Hawaii trip. We're supposed to do it like every 4 years, and whatever reason it didn't work out this year. But it's okay. We got a good Santa Barbara trip for our spring break, which was supposed to be our Hawaii trip. And that was super fun. But yeah, like Kat said, I feel like we're so fortunate enough to have such a beautiful facility, like be our
Mhm.
home, that so many teams want to come and play us there. Um, I would say like aside from like maybe like 2 or 3 regular season conference matches, like all of our matches are at home. Um, and so like being able to go in the van is always like a little fun, even though it's like we're going to an away match and like you always want to play at home, but like that's always a cool experience. But yeah, our like spring break Santa Barbara trip this past year was like so fun. And that was like, I mean, we played tennis and it was like we had 2 practice days, but it was like purely for fun and like a little break away from campus. I feel like spring sports always kind of suffer a little bit during spring break because we just don't get to sort of enjoy that like college spring break, but
Mhm.
you know, it pays
That's
to be
true.
good, so it's fine.
Yeah. What
Um,
are some of the fun things you guys did in Santa Barbara?
we walked UCSB, which was super cool, and they have like that beach, like that belongs to the college, I guess, or the university. Um, and that was so great. We had really good Indian food that night and like really good ice cream that night, which was super fun. Um, I'm trying to think. We definitely spent a lot of time like in our rooms, just like hanging out. Oh, we went to I'm trying to remember is it State Street? Do you know the area that well? There's like this one street with like so many shops and restaurants and like we went thrifting as a team, like we went to all these like antique shops. It was so fun. That was a great trip. Um yeah, I guess that was like a pretty good trip. I don't know. I would say like my favorite trip had to be like the Orlando trip to NCAA's last year where they had like the D1, D2 and D3 championships like kind of happening all at the same time. And like that was just like a great tennis experience. I mean, like, yes, the bonding was like awesome and like we had so much fun as a team, especially because we won that year. But like just being there and like sort of like being pampered and like, you know, talk like listening to like crack rackets like commentate on our like matches that and like laughing about all those, like that was like a great memory. I'll never forget that.
That's awesome. It did look like a great time out in Orlando last year.
Yeah.
I saw it looked
Yeah.
hectic because there are just so many matches going on,
Yeah.
but
Hmm.
huge facility, I know, so they can handle it.
Hmm.
Now let's talk a little bit about, we kind of mentioned on your schools just the setup, but let's talk about academics, maybe what drew you to, for you, Sena, go across the country for college. Obviously,
Hmm.
I know tennis was probably a large part of that, but obviously something about the academics drew you there as well in the school. So I'll have you start. What kind of brought you out to Claremont-McKenna?
Yeah, I mean, for sure the tennis brought me out there and also like the idea of getting out of my little bubble in Westchester, New York and experiencing something different, which I guess wasn't far enough because I'm going to Japan, but sorry, mom and dad. But honestly, I always knew that like a liberal arts college experience was for me and I didn't know exactly what I wanted to study going into college. I mean, I kind of had an idea. I was definitely more like humanities driven, more so than STEM. But I feel like talking to Dave and also like talking to a lot of the girls that were on the team when I was like a prospect and like hearing about their experiences being in these like small classes and like having, you know, more of a personal relationship with your professors and like being able to take all these classes and all these different disciplines and like really figuring out what you wanted to do, like that's what really drew me to Claremont McKenna specifically. And like yeah, my experience in all my classes have been amazing and honestly exactly what I was looking for in an academic experience.
And Kat, you, from your bio, looks like you're from Washington, so a little closer than New York, but still probably a good bit from home to choose to go out of state. What drew you out to Scripps?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, I was actually at another liberal arts school in SoCal, about 30 minutes away from the Claremont colleges. And I was playing tennis there for one semester, and then, I knew it wasn't the right fit, so I wasn't quite sure where I wanted to go. And I had played in the fall ITAs for that school, and we played CMS actually, and I played against one of the players there. And it was a beautiful campus. I had walked around the facility, and of course, I knew it was like a very prestigious school. And so I reached out to Coach Dave to see if he might be interested in having me as a player. And so that's where we connected from there. In terms of Scripps itself, I had previously gone to an all-girls high school, and Scripps is an all-women's college. Um, and so as I was going through the transfer process, I was a bit nervous. I was like, that hadn't worked out. I was a little nervous that was going to happen again. So Scripps just kind of felt like a little bit similar, but at the same time different. It was kind of the next step and a little bit in my comfort zone. And then you mentioned Washington. I hate the rain. I spent all my life there. It rains 9 out of the 12 months of the year. And it's not that like nice, like spring rain. It's that like cold, gray, dark, cloudy rain. So I knew I wanted to be in California and kind of speaking with Coach Dave, who, very much emphasized that it was a culture where he fosters like competitive players, but also,
Mhm.
it embraces like the D3 identity where it's student athletes and student comes first. So that really appealed to me. And, I was very and still am extremely happy with my decision to attend Scripps and play for CMS.
And it sounds like you haven't been able to make your way out of California either, so the sun has got you.
Yes, I'm here to stay.
Although SF kind of gets rain, does it not?
Not the same way as it does in Seattle. Right now, it's like a very lovely day. There might be shadows in my room, but yeah, it is a bit gusty over here most of the time, but it's a compromise.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you guys both found your way to those schools and had a great time with the D3 experience. When you look back, for you, Kat, is there a class or professor that stands out as maybe one that you remember a lot and had a great time in?
Yeah. So I majored in legal studies with a concentration in race and law. So the courses range from law and ethics to history courses to philosophy. I think my favorite class was an Asian American Studies course. It was a combination of history and societies within the Asian American community. And I found it to be really interesting and informative, and I got to hear a lot of other students and the professors' perspectives. Um, so I think that was definitely one of my favorite classes. And what's unique about the Claremont colleges is that you can take classes at any of the 5 schools. So I took some classes at CMC, I think 2 at Pomona, 1 at Pitzer. So you're going to meet a lot of other people. I will say I avoided Harvey Mudd at all costs and any computer science or engineering courses there. So I'm curious if that was Sena's case as well.
I actually took a class at each of the 5 Cs. That was like one of my goals coming
Yeah.
into college, attending the 5 Cs. I was like, I have to take whatever it is. If it's like cooking at Mudd, like I will take it. Like I'll get it done. I actually took like a leadership class at Harvey Mudd. It's definitely like up there on my favorites. But I'll say my favorite class ever. I was a philosophy and public affairs major with a sequence in leadership studies. So that means I like mostly took philosophy classes, but I had like a little bit of gov and econ in there. But for my like advanced senior seminar to complete my major, I had to take like an upper level philosophy class. And it was like I was actually like a torts and social justice class. It was insane. It was like so fun, and I was like way over like in my head about it. I was like, I'm like so much imposter syndrome. Like everybody in this room is so smart. We're like reading through these like theories written by like these like amazing philosophers on like tort law, and like my classmates are just like tearing it apart. Like each theory, they're like, this is what's wrong with it. This is where it should be better. And I'm just like, I can't even understand. Like, I have to read these theories like 5, 6 times, like much like, let alone like find something wrong with it. Like, I was just in awe of like all of my classmates that like in that class that I took my fall of my senior year or something. And yeah, I would say that class was like the culmination of all my experiences, like not just Claremont-McKenna College, but like at the other schools as well. Is like you're surrounded by such like scholars. Like I don't even know what other word to use other than like scholars. Like people are so like dedicated to their studies, and they're just like everybody in that room was just so bright. And I like would go to my professor and be like, I have so much like anxiety because like everybody in this room is so smart, and like I'm just like keeping up. And he's like, you're fine, like you're doing okay. And I was like, God bless Professor Hurley, you're awesome. But like yeah, I was just like in awe of everybody in that classroom. And I'm so honored and like privileged to be able to have surrounded myself with such smart people for the last 3 years, 4 years on Zoom.
Yeah, that's awesome. And my mom always says, surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. And I never really understood what that meant until as I got older.
Yeah.
But it's true. Yeah.
Great advice. So now we're going to get to a little bit of story time. So the first thing I want to hear from both of you is your funniest or craziest but appropriate story. We've already heard about the airplane food poisoning, so that cannot be yours, Kat. But I'll have you start.
Gosh, there are so many. I don't think I've laughed as hard since I left. We were really into birthdays. We would get cake, candy, balloons, silly string for every person's birthday. And we would have one teammate keep the birthday girl distracted while we got set up, like they didn't know it was coming. I remember October was a big birthday month. And it was just a new cake from 85 Degrees, which Katie is like a Chinese bakery, and it's like heavy on the frosting and like there's fruit and it's really good. But we were getting so sick of it. And I think it was Juliet's birthday, who was the last in October, where we were just grimacing with like every single bite we took, but it was her birthday, so we had to keep eating it, and keep smiling. And by the next year, I remember for Sydney Lee's birthday, we had switched to donuts or cupcakes or some other dessert, but we never got to the point where we got fruit. So
That's funny. How about you, Sena?
Um, I was actually like, I was talking to Kat about this, and I was like, oh my God, we have so many like airplane stories. It's so funny that you brought up the airplane story before, because like all my crazy stories are like airplane stories. Um, but I was like texting my teammates like earlier when I first got like the prompts, and I was like what crazy stories like that are appropriate? Like so many appropriate ones.
caveat.
But one of my teammates was like, "What about that time we met Coco Gauff?" And I was like, "Oh, like yeah, that is a crazy story." Okay, so basically, we were coming home from indoors from Kentucky, and we always take like a connecting flight through Atlanta or something, and like our team like is notorious for our like airport like feasts, like especially after like big tournaments, especially after indoors because that's always in like the middle of the season, and we always like go back. I feel like with NCAAs we don't always get to like go back to campus. But like we would get to the airport and it'd usually be like after our match. So like we would just like feast. We would find like Shake Shack, like Chipotle, Qdoba, like anything that was just like I need like greasy, like celebratory food, and we would like take all of our food and sit on the floor of our gate, like in between, I don't know, layovers or like whatever it is, and we just like sit in silence and just like literally inhale everything. And like I swear, like one time Dave and Caitlin were like looking and being like, "What is going on?" Like I've never seen 10 girls eat with like such ferocity. Like we would sit in silence and like for 20 minutes straight just like munch on food. But anyway, I think this is like either this past year or the year before. Back to the story. We were like doing our little feast on the floor, and then like Ella looks up and is like, "That's Coco Gauff," and we're all like burgers in our mouth, like grease on our faces, looking up, and like Coco Gauff is just like walking by our gate. And we get up, sprint to her, and we're all just like, "Oh my God, like we're such a big fan. Like we're a tennis team. Like we're coming back from indoors and like blah blah," and like talking, and like half of us are like in a food coma, like trying to keep our eyes open, and like the other half is like ketchup on our faces. But she was so sweet, and she talked to us for like 30 minutes, like talked to us about tennis. I think like one of our like assistant coaches like works with Naomi Osaka, and like her and Naomi are very close, so like they had this whole conversation, and like she took a bunch of pictures with us, and then she ended up being on our flight back to Ontario because she was playing Indian Wells like the next week or so. And so like we would like walk by her on the plane and like wave, and like we'd be like, "Oh my God, like we're friends with Coco." Um, and then we would got to the airport, and like she got her bag, and then like the Indian Wells like Mercedes-Benz van like pulls up to the sidewalk, and we're all just like, "Oh my God, like she's a massive celebrity." So that was a crazy story. And then she ended up winning, I think, the US Open that year. So woohoo. And then I think we won NCAAs that year too. So maybe we had like mutual cheering on that
Yeah,
spurred both of us going.
I think a little luck rubbed off on both of you guys.
Right. So we like to say.
Yeah, there you go. That's awesome. So those were funny or crazy, but let's just think about your favorite memories. So obviously a national championship could be one or something like that, but just when you look back at your time with the team, what is maybe, a memory that holds close to you? And Sena, I'll have you start this one.
Yeah, I think like I've definitely been blessed in my career to have so many like great memories be of winning. Um like the 2022 championship year was insane. Like that was like I think an amazing memory for everyone, but also especially for like the seniors on the team, having lost like basically 2 whole seasons to COVID and then coming back and like winning in their last year, and like being able to share that with them, with people who have had such like huge influences on my career and like my leadership style on this team. That's always a great memory to think about. I think, like I said, like the 2023 championship in Orlando, being able to be there with the D1, D2, and D3 teams, and like just kind of feeling that like extra like energy that was there. That was awesome. But I think my favorite memory is actually from this past NCAA championship, which we didn't win, and that was unfortunate. But I mean, I remember like playing our semifinal match and standing there for like the trophy presentation for the semifinalist trophy, and obviously we were very upset, and like we wanted to win and we wanted to get that three-peat. But I remember standing there and like cheering on every single one of my teammates who had their name called up, and just like looking back at all the times that we spent together. And I honestly like look back on that moment with like such happiness and such joy, even though we didn't that moment came after a loss, and like the last competitive tennis match I'll probably ever play. But yeah, like I think that was just like such a culmination of like all of my like happy memories that I spent with like the team. And like I'm just reminded of all of the happy moments that I spent with the team, like outside of tennis too. And so yeah, I'm definitely like grateful for all of the wins that we've had, but it's the moments like with the individuals and with my teammates that I'll cherish the most.
Yeah. No, I think as Sena said, it's definitely a collection of memories, and I can put winning a national championship in 2018 up there as a favorite one, but it's also what led to it. I think really, and Sena, I think you can relate to this, really only the team and coach knows about the collective journey you take each year to get to the end. And 2018, we had a great group of girls, and we were all really different from each other. We bickered like sisters, and even the day before the tournament started, we were slamming balls and screaming at each other in practice. But that year we were hosting NCAAs, and all the other students had left campus for the year. And so we moved into one dorm with each other. I think it was Phillips, maybe. And it was such an exciting time where we were just popping into each other's rooms and watching movies and dancing to music, going to the trainers for ice baths and seeing Charles and banging on each other's doors in the morning. Yeah. Banging on the doors in the morning to go to practice. And that energy was just electric. And it was a great bonding experience. And I think after we won, we could all reflect on those like past couple of days. It wasn't just the last day, but it was just like a full circle for us. And I definitely took for granted having my best friends a 2-minute walk away. And Sen, I wish that's something that I told you before you graduated, just to treasure that time, but it sounds like you did anyways.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's so nice when I lived like 2 seconds away from the biz. I lived in the senior apartments like my last year, and like I could always walk to the team room, and like if I wanted to like hang out with someone, like someone would be in there all the time. And it was just so easy to just like be with people on like a college campus. And like I'm sure it's the same for other colleges too, but especially at the 5Cs, it's like everything is so close together. And like even Harvey Mudd, which is like the furthest campus, was like a 7-minute walk. Like I could go into the dining hall and sit with it's crazy. I
Not
mean,
5, not 10, 7.
Okay, sorry. I didn't want to say 5 because 5 is like very close, but like Mudd was far. It was far. Like there were times where I like didn't go to the Mudd dining hall because I was like, I don't want to walk. But that's the Claremont Mile. You get lazy. The more you live there, by senior year, you're not leaving your room. But yeah, I definitely like, especially now moving to a different country is like terrifying because I'm going to miss like everyone. Like I'm gonna have to make all this like extra effort, like beyond graduating, beyond staying in touch with people, like to be in a completely different time zone and then have to like navigate all that is like super scary for me. But I honestly have like no doubts that my teammates will be people that like are going to be so easy to get in touch with and so easy to keep up with. And like that's like a connection that has solidified so much. Like on those girls will be my family for the rest of my life for sure.
Yeah, I can confirm that.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, we're going to start to wrap it up now. A couple more questions just sort of about Division III. So the first one I have for both of you, you obviously were both Division III student athletes. And as you mentioned earlier, Kat, your program really put a big focus on that student athlete experience. So just what did it mean to you to be a D3 student athlete? Maybe it was you got to be involved in other things. Maybe it was just a really good balance, great academics. For you, each of you, what was that experience like? And Kat, I'll have you start.
Yeah, I think there's two parts to it. I think like the athlete part is being able to perform and compete at the highest level of D3 is something that D3 gave me and us, but like CMS specifically. Coach Dave was in his second year there when I started, and I think it speaks volumes to his ability to develop such a successful program of players. And the Thenas have won 3 national championships in the past 6 years. But we've also had the personal and professional wins during our time there and after. And some of that comes from having an experience that teaches you discipline, teamwork, grit, and having passion for something. And speaking to the student athlete side, I think that my experience, it gave me confidence and realization that I can have multiple identities. I can be a student, I can be an athlete, I can be a leader. It really gives you an opportunity to test out different schools before you take on what's next after you graduate. I really thought I was going to pursue a career in athletics because I was involved in sports most of my life. But being a D3 student athlete, it gave me the opportunity and time to explore other options, make friends who didn't play sports and see what their interests are. And while sports and tennis specifically will always have a special place in my heart, I'm trying a new path for now. And who knows, I may come back to athletics in some shape or form in the future.
And
Yeah,
Sena?
I think Kat put it perfectly. You know, it's kind of special to play for a program like CMS, and honestly any of like the top D3 programs these days is like you're always going to be competing for something bigger, whether it be like your conference or like for us it was always NCAAs, and that was just such a special experience. And I knew when I was looking for colleges that that's what I wanted. I think honestly, maybe it was a different D3 coach told me like, yeah, if you go D1, like you're not going to be able to compete for a national championship. Like you're going to be competing for conferences or for like a pretty good season and like having a pretty good record. But like if you go D3 and if you go to any of these, 10 schools that are always in the running, like you're going to have such a different experience. And so that's definitely something that I valued, and a huge, like probably the reason why I chose to go D3. I think Kat also touched perfectly on like the student aspect, and you really do get to like hone in on your academic skills as well. I guess I could touch on like the social part. I think Dave particularly does such a great job of like ensuring that we as D3 students have like this amazing balance of sports, academics, and social. I mean, like he's always the champion for doing something fun. And like, if there was like a school event that was being put on, like he was always the first one to be like, you guys should go and like have a good time. And so that's something I'll always remember about my experience at CMS is like, I don't ever feel like I compromised anything. Well, maybe besides like my college graduation, but then, we got that. We were fighting for something more. So I'm actually okay with that. But like, in terms of like the social aspect, like I never felt like I was left out or I never felt like I was sacrificing. And even if I like did miss, a party or two, like being on this team and being surrounded by like my teammates and the people that like I wanted to spend time with, like it never felt like a sacrifice. But I will say like the balance definitely made my experience, like my college experience, enjoyable. Like I had a great time in athletics, in academics, and socially for sure.
All right, the last question. This podcast is part of our 50th anniversary. So Division III is 50 years down and many, many more to come.
Woohoo!
I know. Happy birthday to us. So 50 years down, many more to come. I'm not going to make you like pull out a crystal ball or something to guess, but maybe just in tennis even, what do you see for the future of D3? And maybe also have you seen it kind of just grow over your 4 years or since you started, Kat? And Sena, I'll have you start, and then Kat, you can wrap us up.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the D3 is just getting stronger and stronger by the year. I mean, like, even if you just like look at especially for tennis, like if you look at the recruits, like the people who are choosing to go D3 and choosing to like take the pathway that Kat and I just talked about like this balance of high academics and high athletic achievement. Like teams are good. Like it's like this past tournament, we were like, what? Like everybody was just like, go, go, go. Like people are like working. Like the D3 is getting good. Also, I will say I had an opportunity to talk to Mr. Baker, the president of the NCAA. That
President
was like
Baker, yes. Yeah.
yeah, President Baker. He was like, that was so cool to be able to talk to him and like talk to him specifically about D3 because I think the NCAA is doing a lot to like make sure that the D3 experience stays the D3 experience. I know we talked a lot about like NIL and like that and like making sure that's not that doesn't like stream into the D3, which I was like super thankful for because like as a student athlete, especially in the D3, like I don't like want to be an employee and like I don't want to have like the whole point is to like be able to have this like well-balanced experience. But also like this crazy high achieving like athletic level. And so yeah, I'm super excited to see like especially at CMS like all of the great talent that Dave is going to recruit and all of the amazing like athletic achievements and like personal achievements, work achievements, like everything. It's just it's going to be great.
Yeah.
That's great.
No,
As
go
an
ahead.
aside for you, Sena, sorry, you mentioned President Baker. So he
Mhm.
and his staff is the reason I had to do an hour of research into what the 5 Claremont colleges were. They were like, someone in his office was like, "Can you please explain this to me?" And I was like copying and pasting things. I was like, "It's like Oxford," which I don't really know anything about Oxford either.
Yeah, that's so funny. Sorry.
Katie,
No,
you should have texted us. You should have called
Yeah.
us.
I know.
We would have given you the low beforehand.
You would have. I would have just been like, just put it in like dumb person terms. How dumb? How much can we dumb this down? But yes, I love that you got to meet him. He was
Yeah,
great, and
he was
he had
great.
both of his sons played Division III sports, so he definitely
Mhm.
has like a special place in his heart for D3. But
Mhm.
I know you were trying to start your answer, so I cut you off, Kat. But I had to tell you that because it was the whole reason I did research into your school.
That's so funny.
No, I think Senna covered a lot of it. I will say that I think recognition comes with time. And what popped into my head is that, we've had a couple of teammates who, come from the other side of the country or international. I think Caroline Cox, she's from Kentucky, and so she didn't really know CMS beforehand, hadn't heard of it, her neighborhood and her fellow students didn't really know what it was. And on the West Coast, like I knew it was a great school. And so I think that recognition comes over time with kind of learning about the different top schools. And then so along with that comes great players going to great schools as well. I've already gotten to see a little bit of the future of D3 since I've graduated, so I have a little bit of the crystal ball. And as Senna said, it's just continuing to attract high-level players across each sport who take pride in their craft and love the game that they play, and they embrace it as part of their identity. So just short and sweet, I really expect that to continue and the level to keep growing. And it's been fun to watch. I've watched Senna play for the past 3 NCAA tournaments. Her and her teammates, it's really such a, I would say, nostalgic moment, but also kind of I'm passing the torch along, and it's great to see those girls compete for each other and for their school.
That is a perfect way to wrap this up. Thank you both so much for joining me tonight. I had a great time chatting with you, hearing about CMS, your experience there. It sounded like an amazing time for both of you. Kat, wishing you the best of luck in your career that you are in. Sena, you are leaving the country in about a month and a half, so I'm wishing you the best of luck in your first career post-grad. That's so exciting. Thank you for joining me.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So much for having us, Katie.
To everyone listening, thanks for tuning into this episode of Small Talk. We post new episodes every week. To follow along with everything Division 3, you can find us on social media at NCAAD3 or NCAADIII. Make sure to join the conversation with us all year long by using the hashtag DIII50. Have a great day, and we'll see you for some more Small Talk next week.